We're gonna do some Mike Burnfire. You guys like Mike Burnfire. I like Mike Burnfire. I love the campfire stories. I love the military stories. Even though sometimes they kind of give me some PTSD from back in the day. Because I developed severe allergies when I was in the military. What were my allergies, you ask? Bullshit. That's what I was allergic to when I was in the military, and there's a lot of it. And Mike Burnfire sometimes reminds me of that bullshit. And it triggers me. I can't help it. So let's see. First sergeant slash damaged firearms. I had one good first sergeant when I was in the military. One. First Sergeant Durant. That guy was fantastic. I have nothing bad to say about that guy at all whatsoever. He was absolutely fantastic. I loved his leadership style. I loved the way he treated us. He didn't treat us like fucking kids, man. He didn't treat us like little fucking babies, and he didn't micromanage either. He was a fantastic first sergeant. I have no bad things to say. The commander, on the other hand, he was a baby back bitch, and if I ever see him again, Captain Wilson, I'ma slap the shit out of you. But First Sergeant Durant, nothing but good things to say. I thought he was fantastic. I loved serving under him. My other first sergeant, because I had two first sergeants while I served under two first sergeants when I was in the service, and my first sergeant was some little short dude that was like 5'4", and he really, really, truly had the most severe case of little man syndrome. It was embarrassing. His little man syndrome was out of this world, bro. And I didn't like his leadership style. He treated us like fucking toddlers. He talked to us like fucking toddlers. He micromanaged everything. And he ruled with a fucking iron fist. And mass punishment was his favorite kind of punishment. And I despise mass punishment. Why the fuck should I get in trouble and get yelled at for some random motherfucker in another company that I don't even know his name? Man. And my first sergeant, that first sergeant, he was a kiss ass. He was a kiss ass all the fucking time. Anytime the battalion commander was around, bro, this dude turned into the biggest ass kisser I had ever seen. Any battalion, any commander, any second, well, he didn't give a fuck about first, he didn't give a fuck about second lieutenants, but first lieutenants and up, if they were around, he turned into a straight bitch. The biggest the biggest brown nosing ass kisser I had ever met in my entire life. And he would throw you under the bus just to look good, just to make himself look good. Man, I hated his leadership style and I despised serving under him. Not a lot of not he didn't get much respect from people, really. The only people that respected him were the E6s that were trying to get to E7. That's it, really. Everybody else, they just faked it and pretended. Really, put on a fake smile for this little bastard. And that was it. Like, I know one time he put me at he put me my commander said something. He was talking to me, so when he started talking to me, I went to the position of attention, and my first sergeant was standing right next to my commander, and my first sergeant said something to me, and when I answered, I stayed looking at my commander, and I answered his question, and he's like, And he's like, Falcon, why don't you look at me? And I was like, well, first off, from this level, I can't. And second off, I'm at the position of attention. Did you forget how it works, First Sergeant? Eyes straight forward. You don't look left, you don't look right. I am at the position of attention. And from this height, I can't see you. So, sorry. Falcon, do push-ups. You fucking little bitch. You fucking little bitch. Oh my god. Oh my god, dude. You're fucking ass. You're so fucking ass, man. Oh god. Jesus. Here we go. First Sergeant, damaged firearms, campfire stories. Here we go.
Did I ever tell you about the two people I met in Iraq who were sergeant, lieutenant, and lieutenant sergeant?
No, I don't think so.
I met two people in Iraq who were part of a completely different company, and their names were lieutenant sergeant and sergeant lieutenant. And they were decent friends, and they would just hang around with each other all the time, so that when someone was like lieutenant, they would both turn around and go, "What?"
We had somebody whose last name was Major, who was a sergeant. He was Sergeant Major.
Oh, that's fun.
That's great.
That's a good one.
Those funny little names, like from the cartoon show. You had Private Public and General Specific.
That was from Sheep in the Big City. I remember that show.
You remember that show?
Oh, man.
You know what would have been awesome? Is if I would have gone the officer route, I could have been Captain Falcon. Yeah, that would have been fucking great. But, man, nah. Fuck the officer route. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do actual work and be an actual soldier.
There's like 3 episodes of that show, maybe.
There were quite a few episodes of that show, but I if I remember correctly, wasn't the premise of the show like this general was trying to capture the sheep for a sheep-powered laser gun?
I think so.
It was like something like that.
Anyway.
I don't think anybody else.
I have the whole box set on my shelf.
I remember when it was on the What a Cartoon show.
They've got a sheep
I don't remember that at all.
I remember that show.
They've got a sheep Daikamura.
I don't remember that
They have
show.
a sheep Funko Pop.
Fucking Funko Pops, man.
For some reason, the company I was in...
I want my own Funko Pop of, like, me. Like, a replica of me. That'd be great.
For a while, we didn't have an actual...
Hold on, let me go back. Hold on.
For some reason, the company I was in, for a while, we didn't have an actual first sergeant. We had...
Y'all probably had a master sergeant, or an E7, which was an acting first sergeant.
And this acting first sergeant was actually a master sergeant.
Yes.
I feel like that's how it was for me, too. There was a role that was supposed to be occupied by a first sergeant. They just didn't get around to putting one there, and it was occupied by a gunnery sergeant.
Yeah. So we had an interim first sergeant. I'm just going to name him First Sergeant Bob. He would insist that everyone referred to him as First Sergeant, even though he wasn't actually he was an interim first sergeant.
Yeah, first sergeant wasn't his rank, it was his role.
It was his role.
He's not actually the first sergeant, he's just the first sergeant. You know what I'm saying?
So he insisted everyone refer to him as first sergeant, which is understandable.
Is it understandable? It's kind of...
I think I'd have problems with that. I think I would have got caught up with semantics, and I would have argued with him, and he would have made me do push-ups. So, yeah. Like, if I gotta call you that, then you're just gonna call me specialist promotable all the time. You see how much of a mouthful that is? You see how annoying that is? You can just call me specialist. You don't have to put promotable in front of it, man. Like, get out of here.
Kind of like when military wives say, "You will refer to me by my husband's rank."
Yeah, no, you're just some bitch. Why don't you get your hands off of my...
Yes! Someone else that said it! No! You're just another bitch. That's it. You're nothing. You're no one. Take your fucking fat ass back to the FRG and work on those goddamn care packages. Get away from me. Like, you're just some bitch.
No, you're just some bitch. Why don't you get your hands off of my car? I was at this pump first.
I didn't mean to send you down this flashback.
I just want to get some gas, buy 5 packs of cigarettes, and...
Ladies, for those of you that are married to military men, you don't have rank. You will never have rank. And no one will ever refer to you as a rank because you didn't earn it, man. I appreciate what you do for your soldier. You know, we all do. The families of service members, they sacrifice just as much as the service member. But don't think for one goddamn second that I'm giving you that kind of respect that you never earned and you don't deserve. Ladies, stop that shit.
And go home. My husband's a first sergeant. I don't give a fuck, lady. I actually don't care. Anyway, he was.
Fuck you and your husband. Seriously. I experienced that at a PX, man. I'm not gonna go into the whole story, but she was like, I'm gonna go get my husband. He's an E6 and blah, 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 all this stuff. I was like, go get him. Fuck you and your husband. I don't give a shit. I don't answer to him. He's not my boss, and he doesn't sign my paychecks, and he's not my first line supervisor. So, fuck out of my face.
He's acting first sergeant, and he took it kind of far. So we have this formation, and one of the soldiers passed out because it's very hot. And First Sergeant Bob goes over to him and starts yelling at him for passing out. Instead of just being like, hey, I understand it's fucking hot. Basically goes over and starts chewing this dude out.
How dare you be unconscious?
How dare you pass out? Well, once the guy woke up. Goes over and starts chewing the dude out. And the guy says, Roger, Master Sergeant. And he flips shit and says, I am a fucking first sergeant. You refer to me as a first sergeant, blah, blah.
Nope. If you don't have that diamond, you're not a first sergeant. Sorry. Sorry, not sorry. Go get your diamond and come back and see me, and I will refer to you as first sergeant. You don't got that diamond? Get out of my face. Same with sergeant major. If you don't have that star, you're not a sergeant major. Get away from me.
Starts going off on it, and the guy's like, he doesn't have first sergeant rank on. Why on earth would I refer? Anyway,
it might be the rank on his lapel, but that's not his rank.
Most of the people in this company did not like this first sergeant.
I don't know.
We had a acting first sergeant for a while. My first deployment, his name was Sergeant First Class Paquette, and no one liked him either. He was a big piece of shit, and he was racist, and he was just. Did I mention that he was a piece of shit? Fucking hated this goddamn guy. Everyone fucking hated this guy. And at one point, one of our E4s actually tried to fight him, and we had to pull him off. And this E4 was fucking big. Matter of fact, this E4 I actually got into a fight with while I was in Afghanistan. 6'2", 6'3", 220 pounds, Specialist Denton. I remember. I remember everything about. We eventually became friends after we got into our tussle and got into our fight. He was like, "Yo, Falcon, I just bought a MacBook. Can you help me figure this out?" I was like, "Sure, dog." But that guy, Sergeant Paquette, he called Denton boy in front of all of us. He's like, "What the fuck did you say, boy?" And Denton lost his fucking mind. And Denton tried to whoop his ass, and it took like fucking 8 of us. Denton is a fucking mammoth. A mammoth. It took like 8 of us to restrain him. Man. Eventually, Sergeant Paquette, he got fired. He got relieved of duty, and they sent his little bitch ass to fucking Fob Shank to go do, I can't remember if it was Fob Shank. But they sent him to a fob where all he did was he took inventory of baggage of incoming and outgoing soldiers. Yeah, they put him on bitch duty because that's exactly what he was, man. And if you ever see my streams or my videos, Sergeant Paquette, you're a whole ass bitch. You've always been a bitch and you will die a bitch. Really. I hated serving under you. You're a piece of shit.
Why not?
I actually had met him when he was
screaming at me at the gas.
Oh, and the whole thing with the diamond. So this is the way it goes. There's 2 ranks, man, and it works like this for specialist and corporal. So with Master Sergeant, essentially you have the same amount of stripes and you have the same amount of rockers on your rank, but you don't have a diamond in the middle. The first sergeant has a diamond in the middle of his stripes and his rockers. The master sergeant doesn't have a diamond in the middle of his stripes and his rockers. So you can tell who's a first sergeant and who's not. You can tell who's a master sergeant and who's a first sergeant. If you see that diamond, you're dealing with a first sergeant. If there's no diamond, but it's the same amount of rockers and it's the same amount of stripes, you're dealing with a master sergeant. And technically, you don't even need to call them master sergeant. You can just call them sergeant. Really. So.
Gas pump with his wife.
I had actually met him when he was in E6, like long before the deployment.
Staff sergeant.
When he was a staff sergeant and he was about the same size as I am. And then he came back from deployment and his arms were as big around as my thighs were. Because this was at a time when...
was he doing steroids?
The Army wasn't really monitoring
I
steroid
knew it.
use. Anyway.
Are they doing that now?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, he's yelling at this soldier and everyone in our company, because this soldier is not in our company. He was in like the formation next to ours.
Okay.
So he's yelling at some soldier that, one, isn't even in his chain of command.
Don't do that. Don't do that. As an NCO, if that soldier doesn't belong to you and that's not your and you're not his first line supervisor, it is not your place or your job or your duty or your responsibility to do anything with that soldier. If anything, you go find his first line supervisor and you tell him what he did and blah 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 and all this stuff. And it depends. It's kind of like a gray area. So like sometimes in the case of like haircuts or like a dirty uniform or like if you didn't shave, yeah, any NCO can tell you to fucking go fix yourself. But that kind of behavior is mostly frowned upon and no one fucking likes it. And yeah.
And two, insisting that he is a rank which he is not.
Right.
As he's yelling at them, the sergeant major of the infantry battalion comes over and grabs him and is like, "You are not a fucking first sergeant."
Oh.
Yes, sir.
You are not a fucking first sergeant. You are in the position of
Yes,
one.
sir.
That does not fucking make you a first sergeant. If I'm in the position of a warrant officer, that doesn't fucking make me a warrant officer.
Exactly.
Don't you fucking tell him to call you what fucking rank you're not.
Exactly. That's the equivalent of like if there's no sergeant in my squad, but I'm the specialist with the most time in service, that makes me the squad leader. That doesn't make me a sergeant. That just makes me the leader of that squad. I don't have that rank because I haven't earned that rank. Same thing.
I will get you for impersonation of a non-commissioned officer.
Damn. You gotta love it when a sergeant major like that takes command.
Made him stand at parade rest.
That's
Made
fantastic.
the first sergeant
That's
Made
stand
the first
fantastic.
sergeant stand.
That's
The first sergeant
fantastic.
acting first sergeant.
the acting first sergeant. Because the moment he came over and started
Oh,
yelling,
bro, and nothing hurts their ego more, man, especially when it happens in front of other people, especially lower enlisted, because higher enlisted don't like looking foolish or stupid or dumb in front of lower enlisted. And when that happens, bro, it is a sight to behold. They get so fucking mad and they get so salty.
at him, he's like, "Yeah, but I," and he goes,
But
"So
nothing.
Just shut the fuck up and stand at parade
But
rest."
nothing.
Just fucking rips into him. I had several disagreements with this man.
I don't believe you. He sounds like a great guy.
I got in an argument with him at one point because when you have a gun, think of the thing that you're aiming through, whether that's an optic or iron sights or whatever it is. Think of that as a laser.
Okay.
And also think of the bullet as a laser.
Right.
now. When you are aiming at an object, the bullet is going to come out in a straight line and the laser is going to come out in a straight line. Think of them as two completely parallel lines.
Yes.
When you zero the iron sights or the optic or whatever, what you're basically doing is making those two lines intersect at a specific distance. I got in a disagreement with this first sergeant because he was insisting that when you fire an M16, the bullet is going to come straight out of the barrel and then the bullet will rise up into the air and then go back downwards.
Okay.
I was saying no, because when you zero the gun, you're basically making the barrel go up slightly on an incline so that it's zeroed for a specific distance. So yes, the bullet will go up, but it doesn't rise in. They're not like airsoft pellets. They're not like
This isn't the movie Wanted. What an idiot.
paintballs. They don't have hop up on them that makes them go up and then down. They just go in a parabolic arc.
Yeah.
And I got in a long, drawn out, protracted argument.
And imagine arguing with armor, which is exactly what I forget his name all the time and I apologize. He's an armorer, bro. Imagine arguing with an armorer. The guy that is an expert on weapons, knows how to fix them, knows how to do everything with them. Knows how to do the bore sight, knows how to zero, knows how to, like, everything. Imagine arguing with him. Like, no.
About
Zach, that's his name, yeah.
parabolic trajectories.
About parabolic trajectories. He was insisting that all projectiles go up and then down. Even if the barrel is on a completely flat plane, the bullet will go up and then down. And I was like, no, they don't do that. The reason they do that is because the barrel is angled up slightly.
Yes.
Because that's how you zero a gun. So I got in a long argument. That was one of the many arguments that I got in. One of the things you need to know about helicopter operations is that there's generally 3 people that are in charge of a helicopter. You have the pilot, the co-pilot,
And the gunner.
and the crew chief. If you are interacting with a helicopter, especially like a cargo helicopter, you're basically never going to talk to the pilot or the co-pilot.
No.
Just the crew chief.
The crew chief is
Yeah.
pretty much the only person you're going to interact with.
He's the liaison.
You take all orders from the crew chief. You have no business talking to, for why. Yeah, you don't need to.
He's the one that, quote, owns that helicopter. On that helicopter, he is God.
Yeah.
He is the one in charge of everything on that helicopter.
Okay.
We're getting ready to ride on helicopters from one place to another place. On CH-47s.
What was it? Was it a Chinook? Probably a Chinook, yeah.
And we're getting on the helicopter, and First Sergeant Bob is going around telling people where to sit. He's basically micromanaging the hell out of everything.
Acting like he's the chief crewman.
Acting like
That's the worst possible trait to have as an NCO or as a leader or as an officer. Micromanagement. That is the worst trait to have, man. I truly believe it makes you a garbage NCO. It makes you a garbage leader. You don't trust your soldiers enough to do what they need to do. And if you don't trust your soldiers, your soldiers aren't gonna trust you. It's a give and take. And these motherfuckers think they're God. And for some reason, they think that they're your fucking dad too. And it's just like, nah.
like he's the crew chief. Like, yeah, put this here, put that thing there, put that thing there. And this crew chief comes up and is like, hey, don't put that there. Basically, just no, don't do that thing that you're doing. First Sergeant Bob looks at his rank and goes, don't tell me what to do. I'm a first sergeant.
This is my helicopter, bitch. You don't like it? Get the fuck off my... Exactly.
The crew chief looks at him and goes, get the fuck off my helicopter.
He kicked the acting first sergeant off the helicopter.
Get the fuck off my
Into an
helicopter.
argument between the two of them.
Yeah.
Of, I don't have to listen to you. You're a staff sergeant.
Doesn't matter.
And then,
I don't have to listen to you. You're a gunnery sergeant or whatever.
I don't have to listen to you. You're a not first sergeant. Well, I don't have to listen to you because you're not a first sergeant either. He wouldn't have known that. That would have been funny. Anyway, they start getting into this argument, and eventually the crew chief and like 2 other people have to come up and be like, no, get the fuck off the helicopter. If the crew chief says to get off the helicopter, you get off his fucking helicopter.
Yeah.
He must not have known it was the crew chief.
I guess not. I don't know how he didn't know, but anyway, he got in an argument with the crew chief. The crew chief kicked him off the helicopter, and he couldn't fly out for another 3 hours. Because the crew chief basically went to everyone that was in that flight block and was like, yeah, don't let this guy on the helicopter, make him go on the next one.
Okay.
If he's gonna mouth off to me, he'll probably mouth
Fuck
off
that
to you.
guy.
Well,
yeah.
thank you, Zach, because by relaying this information to me, I now have a plan if I ever get drafted and sent out to war.
Oh,
To
that's
piss
great.
off all the crew flight chiefs.
Yeah, you could just piss off all the crew chiefs, though I think then they would probably just court-martial you or something.
Hey, I'm trying to get out to the war, but I mean, these guys don't want to fly me. They're being real jerks about it.
Yeah. Anyway,
I like to imagine I'm just doing that and I get promoted and people come by. I'm like an 8-month veteran at doing this.
just been doing it over and over and over again, just really, really using that sham shield.
You say sham shield, but I'd be like an E7 or an E8.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Anyway, we went on a whole tangent about First Sergeant Bob and being a goober.
He wasn't actually a first sergeant.
I think he went to Fort Leavenworth.
Did he?
Fort Leavenworth is a prison.
It is a prison. For what?
I think he was part of a massive embezzling scheme that the sergeant major of the support battalion that I was technically a member of.
Well then.
He was smuggling out first sergeant insignias.
Well then. Oh, how the mighty fall. Well then, interesting.
When they went to the Velcro ones, he was smuggling those out. We had a guy in my company that was.
What are these ranks even for? Like, how does it help? It's a ranking structure, bro. It's a ranking structure. You need a ranking structure. It's the same thing with police, man. You got your chief of police, you got your captain, you got your sergeants, and then you got your regular beat cops. There is a ranking structure. Everybody answers to somebody, bro. Everybody, and it has to be that way. It has to be that way, otherwise you just have too many chiefs and not enough Indians. And then you don't get anything done. You have to have a ranking structure. Every army has always had a ranking structure, even from the dawn of fucking time. Really. So yeah.
One of the PLL clerks. He's basically one of the people that like orders parts, but he was an E4. They kept trying to promote him to other things. He just straight up was like, no, I don't want it. No, I don't want it. Oh, you want me to re-enlist? Yeah, I'll re-enlist. But no, I don't want to get promoted. And somebody was like, why do you keep re-enlisting if you don't want to get promoted? He's like, I'm just doing my 8 years so that they can't hold me in for any longer.
Oh.
He was being really smart about it. He was like, no, don't promote me. I like the exact position I'm in. Mm-hmm. I'm not getting promoted. I will straight up refuse to be promoted.
I didn't realize you could refuse to be promoted.
You can, actually. And I refused to go to the board. I had a valid excuse. I couldn't walk because, like 7 days prior, I got hit with an IED, and I spent a lot of time in the ICU, and I spent a lot of time in the hospital, and I spent a lot of time on recovery, and it was really hard for me. Like, I was in pain just simply walking, and they were like, oh, Falcon, we're gonna send you to the board. And I was like, no. And they were like, why? And I was like, bro, how am I going to do facing movements? How am I going to stand at the position of attention? How am I going to do left face, right face, about face? How am I going to do any of this shit, man? No, I'm not going. I don't want to. I just want to get out. I just want to get better, go back on mission, and go the fuck home. If you want to promote me when we get back home, you can promote me when we get back home, but I don't want to get promoted right now. I don't want to be an E5 right now. I'll be an E5 in Garrison. I don't want to be an E5 here in Afghanistan. I just didn't, man. So kind of a valid excuse, but yeah, you can refuse. And another thing. Well, actually, never mind.
I don't know specifically how he was doing it, but yeah, he basically was just like,
I'm gonna fail my physical fitness scores, so you can't promote me.
No, actually, now that I think about it, he was probably doing the exact same thing I was doing, which is, oh, we're sending you to Warrior Leaders course. Nope, can't go. Can't do it. I'm busy. I'm busy that day. I got too much work to do.
Fixing guns, sorry. Because you didn't want to get side promoted to corporal.
God, no. That would have been awful. I would have been
I would have. No. One of my NCOs brought up the idea of corporal. And by the way, corporal is not for every installation. Some installations will honor your corporal status. Other installations won't honor your corporal status. So for instance, we had a corporal when I was stationed in Italy. And then he ended up getting stationed at Fort Stewart, right? And then one random day I was in the PX and I saw him. And I was like, "Holy shit, dog. I haven't seen you since Afghanistan. How you been? What the fuck happened to your rank? What? I thought you were a corporal." He's like, "I was, but they took it away from me." I was like, "Did you get in trouble?" He's like, "No, it's like they wouldn't let me be a corporal. They put me back to specialist." I was like, "They can do that?" He's like, "I guess." But he wasn't really mad about it because, to be honest, I think corporal's a bullshit rank. You're essentially doing more work for the same pay. Fuck that.
absolutely miserable. If they had made me in charge of the entire battalion's small arms repair and I was in charge of like 5 soldiers, I would have fucking killed myself.
Would have been difficult to keep tabs on those 5.
Yeah, and you'd be giving up your sham shield, and I was not about to give up my fucking sham shield.
Soldiers when you're also stuck in the armory.
I was not an armor. I was the small arms repairman. There is actually a difference. So basically,
Okay, yeah. Well, I said armor, whatever, potato, but he's gonna explain it. Hold on. Man, I wish I would have had Zach. I wish I would have had Zach because our armor was a fucking dickhead. He was a dickhead, bro. Like I would take my weapon and I would clean it, and it was immaculate, like absolutely immaculate. It was so clean, and like I would take rags, I would take like a silk cloth, and I would just rub it, and nothing, right? Perfectly clean. I knew how to clean my weapon, very proficient, putting it back together, taking it apart. Like I was good, like very good at cleaning my weapons. And every single time I would turn in my weapon, nope. And I'm like, why? He's like, I was like, I don't see anything. He's like, dirty, go away. I'm just like, bro, he was a dick. Bro, he was a dick.
I was not an armor. I was the small arms repairman. There is actually a difference. So basically, there's 4 levels of working with weapons in the military. 1 is operator, 2 is armor, 3 is small arms repairman, and then 4 is like manufacturer.
So they bring you the guns when the armorer can't fix them. You're the armorer's armorer.
I am 1 step above armors.
Something very technical that most people aren't trained on, you could fix.
Yes.
You got the hard jobs.
Yes. So I was not responsible for just 1 company's worth of weapons. I was responsible for an entire battalion's worth of weapons.
That's annoying.
And then also keeping enough.
That's annoying, bro, because I bet that Zach had so many E6s and E7s and E5s coming up to him like, hey man, we're gonna, like last minute probably, hey man, we're going to the range, can you do this, can you do that, can you do this, can you do that? And fucking Zach's probably just 1 guy, right, for a whole battalion, spread thin as fuck, and it was that was probably annoying for him.
Enough parts on hand to be able to fix all of the weapons in that battalion. My end goal was keep any weapon from being completely deadline for more than 1 day.
How often would you say you kept that goal?
Most of the time I was able to do it.
Were there any guns that were particularly mangled that you were like, this is gonna take about 2 weeks, maybe 4?
On the 50 cal machine gun,
I'm assuming it's, yeah.
basically you can adjust the timing by opening the back plate of the gun and then undoing this little screw. You can make it fire theoretically faster. You're not actually making it fire faster. You're making it fire earlier when the bolt is closing.
I will take your words
Something
on
I
these.
didn't do.
Which, yes, it does make the gun fire faster, but it also means that you can have an out-of-battery detonation, which
Yes.
on a 50 cal
Is not a good thing because it'll explode in your face.
isn't exactly a good, happy thing.
No.
But because making it fire earlier makes it fire faster, you get a bunch of infantry that goes...
And especially if you don't do the headspace and timing properly on your 50 cal, that's also a bad thing too, especially if you decide to do what he just said, which is something that I did not do with my 50. And I was always very cognizant of the headspace and timing. I always did it. I even had like my own headspace and timing gauge that I kept on me at all times.
Haha, machine gun go burr, and they unscrew it all the way and then blow up their machine gun.
So those are weapons you can't fix very easily.
Yeah. The worst I've seen where a weapon was deadlined for permanently. So the Mark 19 grenade launcher gets real hot. It's a fully automatic belt-fed grenade launcher.
And it's awesome.
It weighs like 80 pounds. It's meant to be on a tripod or
Yes.
on a vehicle mount or whatever.
Yeah.
It very explicitly says in the manual that you are only allowed to use LSA or LSAT lubricant
Who reads the manual?
in it.
Okay.
You are not supposed to use CLP.
That I didn't know because I mean I fired the Mark 19, but I never had to take it apart. I never had to put it back together. I never had to clean it. So that I didn't know. I have no idea what LSA. I strictly only use CLP, and CLP you can use it on your M16s, on your M4s, on your 240s, on your 249s, and on your M4s. Did I say M4? And on your 50 cals.
Yes, yes. Good old CLP.
You are not allowed to use CLP in this grenade
That is news to me. I didn't know that.
launcher.
But every Marine and soldier knows how to use CLP. We've all got it. It's so easy. It's such a useful lubricant.
You're only supposed to use LSA. They went out to a range with a Mark 19, and the gunner of the Mark 19 decided to use just whatever lubricant he had on hand.
Hey, lube is lube.
The Mark 19 caught on fire. This fully
That's
automatic grenade
bad.
launcher burst into flames.
Oh my god.
Lubricant caught fire, did it now?
Yes. I don't know how it damaged this machine gun that badly from just it catching on fire, but the whole thing, it looked like it had been in a house fire. I don't know if like the vehicle caught fire or something, but the whole machine gun, it was melted. Completely melted.
Neat.
And they were like, "Yeah, can you?"
One of my best friends overseas when I was in Italy when we were deployed, he melted the barrel of a fucking 249. We had multiple barrels, so he changed it out, but I was like, bruh, he got a little too overzealous during a firefight one day.
Can you fix this? No. There's no way I can fix this. This has to be decommissioned and cut up and turned into scrap now.
Gotta dermo it.
The amount of times that people got mad at me because I could not fix their weapon was just absolutely astonishing.
They just got used to you being a magic man, working miracles.
No, I think it was just that it meant that they had to do something now.
Oh no, I'm gonna get in trouble if he can't fix it. Fix it!
I would have people bring me M4s, and sometimes the unit armor would bring the person whose M4 it was. There were a couple times where I straight up was like, yeah, you bring me the person that did this so that I can yell at them.
I want to figure out how they did this. This is impressive.
That's how I found out about the M4 that the barrel was bent in half, because they'd slammed it in the door of an up-armored Humvee multiple times.
Why?
Slammed my barrel in the car door.
There were a few times they were using simunitions, and you were supposed to use a completely different, like, upper receiver for these specific simunitions. But they would just fire simunition through a normal barrel, and the entire barrel would get filled up with basically wax bullets, which ruins their barrel forever.
Yeah.
I can't fix that. So they would bring it to me and be like, hey, I need you to fix this. All right, well, I have to swap out your barrel. There's literally nothing else I can do except swap out the barrel.
Yep,
So I'd start taking their gun apart to rip the barrel off it. Hey, am I gonna have to re-zero my gun?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course you are.
Yeah.
Why do I have to re-zero it? Oh, what? Do you know how long it took me to zero that gun? It should take you like 5 fucking
You fucking suck at shooting if it takes you that long to zero your weapon.
minutes, bruh. What the shit?
It should have, but he's not that smart.
There were a couple times where people broke them in really stupid ways, and they were like, hey, am I gonna have to re-zero my gun? I would just be like, nope, you're fine. Don't worry about it. Go into combat, it'll be great.
And they'd probably take you at your word, not realizing you're being sarcastic.
I don't care. That's not my problem. That's their chain of command's problem for not making sure that their gun is zeroed.
I guess.
Oh yeah. That's what it is. That's what it is, man. Shouldn't take you that long to zero your weapon, and it shouldn't take you that long to qualify. At all. Man. And you know what used to get on my nerves, and maybe some of you veterans and service members can relate, is when you would go to the range and your first sergeant would be on some bullshit and he wouldn't allow you to leave. He wouldn't allow anyone to leave the range until everyone zeroed and qualified. Mind you, not everyone's a good shooter, man. I know it's the army. I know it's the military. But just because you wear that uniform and you raised your hand and said that oath, that doesn't make you a good shooter. So, bro, we would just be out there for fucking hours upon hours just waiting for this jackass that couldn't shoot worth a dick to shoot. And you know what I did? You know what I did? On the people that sucked at shooting, bro, I would fill up like 3 or 4 magazines, and I would go to another lane and sit right next to them and just shoot at their targets so that they could qualify, so that we could finally go the fuck home. Because it was dreadful.